All right, welcome in here. Off and running college football week 10 loaded slate coming up this weekend. Some huge matchups in the Big 12, the Pac 12, you name it, even a couple of games on this Friday as we are taping now. So a little something for everyone. Not too late, of course, to get those bets in. We'll start breaking down these games with three of the best as the one and only Double R1L Steve Merrill in the house. Adam Trigger representing the powerhouse football program of Akron here today. And looks like Rob Vino going all sorts of Syracuse orange on us, or maybe Oklahoma State orange here as they get ready for Bedlam. So we got a lot to dive into here, gentlemen. And Merrill, you are going to kick us off with, oh, look at that. Bedlam, in fact. Oklahoma State taking on OU Stillwater after 120 years. This will be the final installment. And boy, oh boy, Gundy and company would love nothing more than to send OU to the SEC with a final Bedlam loss. Will they do it? Or you have your thoughts on something else in this game?
Yeah, Joe, we had to talk about this game. Your alma mater. Let's get back in the time machine, the hot tub time machine, and go back to 1979. A young Joe Ranieri was stepping foot on campus for the first time and taking in Bedlam 40-some years ago. And, it really is kind of a sad thing that this series is going to end. It goes all the way back. I think they've played like about, 100 plus times, 117 times, I believe. Oklahoma leads 91-19 with 7 ties, 91-19. But I think Oklahoma State might be a live dog this year. In fact, I talked about this game in my college football top 25 video, which is live and loaded right now on Wager Talk TV. 5 head-to-head true top 25 matchups using the playoff rankings for the first time this season. And I bring that up because Oklahoma State is in the top 25 in the playoff rankings, but I believe in the other polls, they might be on the outside looking in. So this is a very important game for them if they want to hold their spot. In fact, they're 1 out, 26 in the AP. And they're actually 2 out, 27th in the coaches poll when you look at the additional votes. But they did sneak into 22nd in the playoff rankings. And I think sometimes the playoff rankings and also the NCAA basketball committee, they get it right. And I think this is a situation in which they're an underrated team. In fact, my database simulation, 10,000 games, has Oklahoma winning by only 4 points on average. So I do think there's some line value with Oklahoma State. When I did my top 25 video yesterday on Thursday, the line was 6 across the board. Also, I run several other projections. Many of them actually have Oklahoma State winning this game outright. And other yardage projections I run have Oklahoma State winning the yardage battle as well. So this is the definition of a live home dog. Now, I cannot call them a defensive home dog. That would not be accurate. That is their weakness this year. They're giving up over 6 yards per play at home, 6 yards per play in all games this season. But I think Oklahoma Sooners offense is a bit suspect at times. They do throw the ball pretty well, 9 yards per pass, but they've been very average running. It's probably one of the weaker rushing attacks we've seen out of Oklahoma. And I think the Cowboys offense is actually more balanced. They run the ball a lot better. They don't throw quite as well. So we get a good running underdog, rival dog, and we get some line value. If you're going to play this one, I think Oklahoma State +6 is worth a look. It would not be surprised if they pull the upset.
Injury concerns on the defensive side of OU for sure, as Oklahoma State, yes, me and old Dexter Manley had the same reading and writing class back in 1979, apparently, Merrill. Only I walked away being able to read and write, and he didn't, but he graduated, so congratulations there. Trig, talk to us about this disgusting Penn State offense here. Are they going to put up enough points to take down a team that can score in Maryland here, although they can't really stop anybody either? It's an intriguing game. Who are you giving the edge to in this one?
Joe, you want to talk about a disgusting game? I went to this game last year. It was in Happy Valley. It was absolutely gorgeous when we were tailgating, and the game was a 3:30 local kick. Like 20 minutes before the game, the temperature dropped like 20 degrees. Rain, wind, it got really cold, and I just don't think Maryland wanted to leave the locker room, and they didn't because they got shut out like 31-0. It was just an absolutely abysmal game. And I think I wonder. I have to think Maryland might remember that a little bit. I mean, they were thoroughly embarrassed, and they come in, kind of in a spot where they really need to do something good to redeem themselves. The last 2 weeks they've lost as a 2-touchdown favorite. And last week losing to Northwestern, the week before to Illinois. 3 straight losses now. I mean, the one, was not, was forgivable. It was Ohio State. But they kind of feel like you're getting Maryland at the absolute bottom right now in terms of, some value. And it looks like some people would have agreed because this one got bet down a couple points. So, some of that value is gone, but I still think anything like above a touchdown uh, is decent value with Maryland at home here. You kind of alluded to it. Penn State, the offense doesn't look like they're going to just like blow anyone out right now. And the biggest thing that sort of sticks out to me is Penn State's game next week with Michigan. So they have to go on the road here for a little bit of a look ahead spot. Of course, Penn State can't be putting too much stock into Maryland in terms of thinking that this is a opponent that could step up and get them after last year. And I got to imagine that game next week against Michigan is very, very circled for Penn State, probably has been all year. That's their biggest home game of the year. That's probably the sort of the marquee matchup for Penn State on the year, which makes me think they might overlook Maryland just a tad. You also alluded to the fact that Maryland can score. This offense really isn't that, like, they haven't not been moving the ball or not been scoring in their losses. They've just been giving up too many points. But the 17 they scored on Ohio State, still the most anyone's put up on the Buckeyes this year. I think this offense can do enough good things to stay in this game. And then I'll just more or less fade Penn State's ability to like run this score up. I think this is probably an ugly game. The total's like 50 or right around there, low 50. Feels like an ugly game and one that Maryland might be able to hang around in. Can they pull the outright upset? I don't know. But I do think that they're going to probably put everything into this game, whereas Penn State might have their eye on Michigan next week. So definitely leaning toward the points. Think Maryland has got a nice chance against a good number at home.
All right, good stuff there. Some value there with Maryland at home this weekend. And that brings us to Rob Vino ready to roll here. But don't forget, guys, not only Rob, but Steve and Adam, if you are new here to Wager Talk TV, go ahead and smash that subscribe button because when it comes to college football content, nobody's got more of it than we do. All three of these gentlemen have plenty of head-to-head matchup previews here, along with best bets available on our YouTube Wager Talk TV page. So hit the subscribe button and always be notified when that content comes available. As Rob Vino in the house, ready to roll here on this Week 10 slate. Robbie, talk to me here. You're going to head out west, though. We're going to go Pac-12. How about that Oregon State taking on Colorado in this one? So tell me who you're looking at. And I don't know, are you a big Dion fan here this week?
Yeah, I think we found out, Joe, that, Dion in the future probably will bring a much better team to the field, but the excitement
Amen.
over the first couple of games certainly has been deterred. I'll go all the way back to game 2 against Matt Rule and Nebraska, where Colorado won, and the final score looks convincing. But at that point in time, Matt Rule set the stage for every other opponent that was going to come Colorado's way when they produced 9 sacks against Shedeur Sanders, made him look frightened, not able to go through progressions and reads. And ever since then, it's been a horrendous year for Colorado at the point of attack. And I don't think that this handicap has to get any more complicated than that, Joe. If we just look at offensive line versus defensive line matchups and numbers that mean something for Oregon State, they're plus 1.7 yards per carry. In other words, they gain 5.4 per rush every time they run it. They allow 3.7, so they're plus 1.7. You start getting up to 2, over 2. In college football, sometimes you can get to 3 and 4 with really, really good defenses because sack yardage is included. But that's a good number. Colorado, on the other hand, they're minus 2 yards every time there's a rush play. Only gain 2.5, allow 4.5. I'll go to pass protection. Oregon State's the better team where the run is concerned. Pass protection, Oregon State's allowed 10 sacks all year, 231 pass attempts. Obviously, they're a run-heavy team, but DJ hasn't been sacked hardly at all this year, once every 23.1 attempts. Shedeur Sanders, on the other hand, as I just said, 42 sacks allowed by Colorado. That offensive line is miserable. They tried to throw it 349 times. He gets sacked once every 8.3 dropbacks. Crazy. Oregon State's a good pass rush team, guys. They get to the passer. They got to Arizona again last week for 4 sacks against what's a really good offensive line. And I'll just hit that game really quick here. The 27-24 win by Arizona last week against Oregon State. If we want to talk about coaching jobs, what Jed Fish has done at Arizona is amazing. And if you look at their offensive line, what they did last week to Oregon State, which again is a really good team in the trenches, that's a good offensive line that pushed Oregon State around, especially at crunch time when they had to. Colorado won't do the same here. I think that for Oregon State, there's still potential for 10 wins here. They're a 6-2 team. If they win out, they go 10-2. The Pac-12 championship isn't totally out of range, but probably out of range. But a really nice bowl bid for them is in store if they can keep going here. I do like them off of the loss. Colorado last week against UCLA, blown out again by a good defense. It amazed me a little bit, guys, that the line was 12.5 here. I know it's a road game, and I know the perception is Oregon State can't score enough to cover big numbers, but Colorado gives up basically 30 to everybody, and I don't know that they're going to get better than 14 here. So the number has pushed a little bit from 12.5 to 13.5, but I would cite Oregon State as the more desperate team for a win here. I don't know that the road altitude will bother them much in this particular case. I think they'll run the ball. Colorado's tempo gets them into a lot of trouble because there's too many 3-and-outs. And by now in game 9, I think we saw last week, this defense is pretty much worn out. Oregon State will wear them out. You don't want to face a team like this if you're already worn out. So give me Oregon State in this one, minus the 13.5. I think they probably get there by 17 or more.
Well, how much Colorado's going to have left in the tank with all the stuff they've had to go through this year, the ups and downs, the injuries. It's crazy, but Oregon State looking to remain on top while they can of a team like Colorado, which I think you said, Rob, was perfectly. Let's see how the recruiting classes go for everyone else here over the next couple of years against Dion. Be interesting having Dion in your living room, wouldn't it? My goodness. All right, we got 3 best bets getting ready to roll here. And we got 3 good ones on the card. So don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you are new here. And we're going to send it right back to Steve Merrill, who is going to talk to us about another Pac-12 matchup. This one is, the mother of all mothers this week here, huh, Merrill? Just look at the total in this game, and that's probably all you need to know here. How are you looking at it?
Yeah, we're going to look at the total in the Washington USC game. That's because I did a deep dive into the side in my top 25 video here on Wager Talk TV, and it's available right now. Number 20 USC taking on undefeated number 5 Washington. I do give you a side opinion in this game on that top 25 video, so take a look for that, some free information there. But let's look at the total as well, as I think there's some value with this total. And yes, it's high, but it's high for a reason. And we've talked about this on the other extreme. The Iowa Hawkeyes continue to go under those low totals. Air Force plays Army this week, 41-10 to the under in all service academy games. And it makes sense. In fact, if you take the Air Force and Army game and the Northwestern Iowa game and add those 2 totals together, it's still 10 points below this one and then some. That's how high this total is. But it's high for a reason, because both offenses are explosive and both defenses are questionable. And look, we all know USC's defense is beyond questionable, and that's why they're out of the national title hump. That's why Caleb Williams, you look at the Heisman odds, he's not even listed in the top 9 anymore. Michael Penix, quarterback for Washington, is the favorite now at 3-1. And I think they'll be scoring left and right. I mentioned it last week. My free play of the week at wagertalk.com was Cal plus 10. But I also mentioned on Wager Talk today, along with that play, which I gave out earlier in the week, that I like the over as a hedge. Just in case Cal, couldn't keep up. I thought they'd give up a lot. It was a 50-49 game. USC put up combined 99 points last week. They've now gone over 6 straight. And yes, this is a big total. It's the biggest of the season for a USC game, but I still don't think it's high enough. Arizona game, 84 points. Colorado game, 89 points. And as I mentioned last week, 99 points with Cal. And that's because USC is below average against both the run and the pass. And they're now taking on a Washington team that averages 48 points a game, 8 yards per play, 10 yards a pass. But USC is as good, if not better offensively. In fact, I think they are better offensively, 46 points a game, and they're more balanced, 5 yards per rush, 9.5 yards per pass. And Washington, although they're undefeated, ranked 5th, I think they're a little suspect, and they very well might get a loss this week because this is a team that's now failed to cover 4 straight weeks, a push and 3 losses against the spread, despite winning those last 4 games. And that's because the defense has gotten shaky. They gave up 33 points to a very mediocre, below-average Stanford offense last week. They gave up 33 to Oregon. Could have been more. They missed a field goal late. They gave up 32 to that Cal team that USC struggled with last week. I look for both teams to trade points. This very well might be whoever has the ball last wins. Should be an exciting game at 7:30 Eastern on ABC Saturday night. Take a look at over 76.5 between Washington and USC. And don't forget, I have 7 strong best bets on my page for Saturday, along with a bonus free play. It's my strongest and deepest card of the season, and I made a 7-for-1 combo at an 83% discount. Don't miss it. Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com.
All right, there you go. Kind of feels like that's a total we might get if Washington was playing USC in college hoops there, Trig, but that's a different discussion for next week. So talk to me here as we have another Pac-12 best bet coming up. You're going to focus on UCLA and Arizona, everyone's favorite darling right now, it appears. What do you think we're going to get in this game? By the way, it's down. I'm seeing the 2.5 now, UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, that's concern. It's concerning, the move, I suppose. And it's totally not my style, Joe, to lay points on the road with like a short, like road favorite. It's not my typical bet. But what I do like to do, I already talked about Maryland and trying to buy a team at their lowest point. Of course, Maryland came off 2 ugly back-to-back losses. I also like to try to find when a team's overheating and go against them. And that's what we're getting with Arizona. And that could very well be why the number is as low as it is. So Arizona's got 4 straight covers. They play, they easy covers against Washington and USC as huge underdogs. They go to Washington State and win 44-6 as like a 7.5 point dog. And then last week they pulled a mild upset at home against Oregon State. 4 straight covers, all as underdogs, 2 outright winners. To me, that constitutes somewhat of like, they have to have peaked in the market from a value perspective. And here I think they finally might meet their match because I don't think that this is a particularly good matchup for Arizona. UCLA has a fantastic pass rush. They have the number 1 defense in the Pac-12 right now by a lot of metrics. And I think that their pass rush could really overwhelm Arizona's offensive line here. Noah Fifita has been like sort of a revelation, right? He comes in, redshirt freshman, takes over, and he's really been the biggest reason, I would say, that Arizona has gone on this run. But now you're going to be asking him to make a lot of plays under pressure, and he's still a younger guy that is, in my opinion, could be a little bit rattled by UCLA getting a ton of pressure in this game. So, that's part of the reason I like the matchup for UCLA. Part of the reason I see value here is 4 weeks ago, Washington was a 19.5 point favorite on this same field. And so now, I don't make Washington and UCLA. There's not that big of a difference there. Like, yeah, okay, Washington's better, whatever. That's like by a little bit. But you mean to tell me that 4 weeks now we've gone from Washington being a 19.5 point favorite at Arizona to UCLA only being 2.5. To me, that move is too drastic, in my opinion. I think if this game occurred a couple of weeks ago, UCLA is probably closer to a touchdown favorite on the road here. So I think you're getting a little bit of just a good number. Reminds me a lot of the game I talked about as a best bet last week on the show with Western Michigan, where they were laying 3, 2.5. It just felt like they were the far superior team to Eastern Michigan. They went out and just blasted them. I hope that's what happens here. I just think UCLA is a much better all-around football team. And I think Arizona's run finally comes to an end. At the very least, Joe, I feel like we're getting a great number with UCLA at anything around a field goal. So I like the Bruins. It's my best bet for the show. I'll lay the 2.5.
Yeah, so we it's this is exactly where Chip comes into play here at some particular point. It's going to be an interesting game there with UCLA. Boy, oh boy, 2.5 now might be a great time to hop on board there. And now Rob Vino is going to finish up our best bets here. And a interesting game, but not necessarily the kind of start to a Big 12 career either of these two teams have hoped for here. Vino with UCF, Gus Malzahn, as well as Cincinnati here. So what gives in this matchup this weekend? How are you approaching it?
Well, the starting point here, Joe, is that I just want to go to the well one more time with the Central
Mm.
Florida total priced in this range. I think we talked about it last week against West Virginia. That game went well over the total. UCF has now played 7 of 8 games that have scored 60 points or more in those contests. If you take their games minus out their one FCS opponent, which was Villanova, you have 6 Big 12 games plus Boise State. And those games on average total 897 and a half total yards. Some of those without John Rice Plumlee. So almost 900 yards per game in a Central Florida game. The Cincinnati team, a little bit of misconception here now that they've had the coaching change, right? You go from Luke Fickell to Scott Satterfield, and all of a sudden, UCF is one of these teams that moves quickly. Cincinnati is one of these teams that moves quickly. 78 plays per game. That's number 7 in the nation by the Cincinnati Bearcats. I don't think, unless you're deep into college football like we are, a lot of people wouldn't recognize Cincinnati as a team that rattles off that many plays per game. You combine that with UCF's offensive tempo and the fact that they gain 7 yards per play, which is number 5 in the nation. And you can see where we're going here with a little bit of offense in this particular game. For UCF, I mean, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. They do get a quick opponent here, which is even better. But last week, I mean, West Virginia is number 117 in tempo, and they still find a way to 70 points in that game or near 70 points in that contest. So UCF's the given here. What I had to do was dig into Cincinnati and find out if they could handle what's going on here. And I think that the quarterback matchup really is equal to what we had last week. We know what John Rice Plumlee is, and I said last week that it would be his second game back from injury. In the first game, Gus Malzahn didn't run him very much. They were timid with him. Last week, he was a little more, used a little more in the run. He had 8 carries for 45 yards, 17-yard touchdown. That will only progress here in this game. The other side of that coin last week was Garrett Green, dual threat quarterback, right? UCF didn't handle him very well. This week, it's Emory Jones. Emory Jones happens to be the second leading ball carrier on the Cincinnati Bearcats, and he fits the bill of a quarterback who can use his legs or his arm to defeat a defense as weak as UCF. So I see a similar matchup there. I'm going to go to last week's drive charts here real quick, Joe, because Oklahoma State beat Cincinnati 45-13 last week, and the 13 looks like, man, since he can't score any points. However, opening drive got all the way to the Oklahoma State 5. They missed a 22-yard field goal. They fumbled at the Oklahoma State 44 when they were on the move. I think they'd gained, I have in my notes here, 34 yards in 5 plays. And they had a turnover on downs at the OSU 35. The fact that they could have gotten to 21-24 pretty easily in that contest, I don't see them making those types of mistakes against this particular defense. For UCF, and I talked about John Rice Plumlee, he had a really good passing game last week, except for the interceptions. Had 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. The 4 TDs that UCF scored in that game were all drives of 75 to 80 yards. It took them 15 minutes combined to do that. So we know about their quick strike capability. I want to factor in the last 4 weeks of Cincinnati football, the last 4 games. Their opponents have scored 35.5 points per game. So the perception that Cincinnati's this good defensive team doesn't exist anymore. And there have been 13 touchdowns outside the red zone, from outside the red zone in 4 games where they've been involved. A couple of those games were against Iowa State, who goes at snail's pace, doesn't do anything. I think one of them was against Baylor as well. So to me, Joe, there's plenty of quick strike here. There's plenty of defensive holes to be picked on. I think if you're looking for one key matchup, just check that Cincinnati rush offense, 226 yards per game against a UCF run defense that's given up 207.5. Since he should be able to run it, throw off of it, I think UCF gets theirs. The temperature, that was the one real concern for me in this game. But in Cincinnati, Ohio at game time, 61 degrees all the way through, 3:30 Eastern start. Going to be nice there. I'm going to go to the well one more time with these UCF's overs until they get priced, in the 64, 65 range. Let's just keep betting them. I think this one, since I sent it in to do on the show, I think it's moved from 59.5 to 60. So we'll take over 60 UCF Cincinnati.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hurry up, run, and then all of a sudden the defense usually wears down in the second half for both teams there, Vino. So it'll be an interesting matchup there with Emory Jones taking on Plumlee. Can they get it done? Points, and more points is what we are looking for with UCF and Cincinnati. And there you got it. We got 3 huge big game breakdowns, 3 best bets for you coming up in this Week 10 matchup, but we are not done here. If you go ahead and click on that video on the screen right now, you will get access to all of not only our top 25 games, but all of the big matchups coming up in this Week 10 slate here. Game previews plus best bets, just a click away. And make sure you come back and join us on Monday. We got college basketball be back. We got more college football, NFL action. We've got it all for you here on Wager Talk TV. Until then, best of luck with all your plays. We'll talk to you again soon.